Hello again, guys. I happened to stumble upon this slick little unit here for a subject for restoration at an antique mall. Had really no idea what it was, what age it was, anything about it. But what I didn't figure out at the time was that it indeed at least arms itself and the trigger assembly works, the springs work to some extent. This is actually a cork pop gun made by All Metal Products out of Wyandotte, Michigan, and it was marketed as a Wyandotte pop gun. You can look it up for yourself online if you want to know more about it. The patent was filed in 1933 and officially patented in 1934. So this would be, you know, your guess is as good as mine, the exact age. You find information online, which is always questionable, saying these were made from late 20s to late 50s. Obviously, they didn't even file the patent till 33, so I would assume easily could be 1930s, 1940s, on into the 1950s. Also, a catalog page shows that I believe this was a number 35 is what their catalog number was, and this should have a webbing strap from the stock to the front of the barrel. I believe that's what this, it doesn't seem to be a hole, but we'll dig into that. We'll figure out more about that later. Kind of a D-ring type of thing there, and then I guess maybe your webbing slipped through those tabs. So we'll have to figure out all of that, but let's dig into it. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have is here at this slot, it is actually splitting. Not so much on the right side, definitely on the left, so we're going to have to weld that shut. And unfortunately, that means we're going to have to remove all of our rivets, and we have quite a loose stock anyway, so that'll take care of all that when we go back together. And then it looks like someone along the line in the past 80 years has JB welded a piece of iron to the top between the two barrels for a sight, I guess. So anyway, some kid having fun playing around, making it his own. We will be removing that, but first, let's remove some rivets. It's lead, not JB Weld. Old school modifications. Alright, the majority of my steel parts are sandblasted, wire wheeled, got a nice brush finish on them, and getting ready to go. I've got 2 or 3 small parts, 2 little springs, and a small pin that I will clean up separately. Certain parts just going to get primered. I may sand them just briefly, get rid of some of the pitting that's occurred over the years, and then paint them black. The barrel, May not even primer that, because just like on the Daisy BB gun restoration video, I don't want to lose my stampings, my factory stampings there. So that'll probably just be black enamel, Rust-Oleum, a similar coating to just what they did in the factory, get it out the door kind of thing. But I may come in here, I've got a lot of inconsistent, or blemishes. Where I welded, I want to just put just a tiny touch of filler on, sand it smooth to get rid of any marks there. There's a lot of heavy pitting on some areas, so it'd be nice to get rid of some of that damage that's occurred over the years, but we're not going to get carried away on that. Having said that, I have to make a decision on how I'm going to treat the inner trigger mechanisms here so that they do not rust. There's plenty of times where I have come in, got bare steel to this point, and then coated it with Rust-Oleum clear satin that darkens it up a little bit, and you retain that bare steel look. I don't know what it would have had originally. It was all of this was very rusty, as you saw. So I'm kind of wondering if it was left bare. It had the mill scale on it, had that oily bare steel going for it. You know what I'm talking about. And that's just where they left it. I don't know. Other possibilities are use gun bluing process, or I could even nickel plate. That's going, like I said, that's going a little above and beyond. It would keep this look, but perhaps a little shinier. But I would know it wouldn't rust, at least in the near future. So we have some decisions to make. We have some more work to do. We better get on it. So as I was saying, scrapes, marks, manufacturing marks, all these scratches in the metal. I was actually reading an article from the 1930s, and it turns out Wyandotte made their toys from the scraps from auto manufacturers at Detroit. And they actually mentioned in there that the car Juniors racing around the living room or something like that could very well be made from the same metal as a Cadillac V16. So, whether that means they were getting their metal scraps from Fisher Body from GM, or what they were doing exactly, who knows, but that is very cool that this could very easily be from the same, from extra stampings from 1930s era automobiles. And the tooling marks, the scratches, the gouges, the wrinkles, the things that give it character. That all obviously was in there from the very beginning. That to me makes it just that much more interesting. Now, in order to get a cork to go, you got to have a rush of air, right, coming on the back side of it. Well, in order to do that, what they did in order to get that is they got little leather seals, so to speak, between two washers here, and then it's pushed on by the spring. And they are worn out, frayed, too small anymore to get a good seal on that inner pipe. And I'll go over more what exactly is going on as we put it back together, as I have figured it out for myself. But I need to straighten out where they enlarge the end of the rods here. Shouldn't be too difficult with this material. Let's roll it around a little. That way we don't lose any length when we go back together. On the video when I restored this Daisy Model 25, you may recall, if you were around so long ago, that our plastic stock was actually completely melted, and it was like someone had stored it, most likely sitting like that upright and in a very hot building or whatever, and the whole thing had a curl to it. So I took a piece of wood, cut it out, and then I removed all the kind of interesting plastic elements from the stock that I could salvage and epoxied them onto the wood. Turned out pretty good. This one, however, is already wood, obviously, probably made from an old packing crate if they followed Henry Ford's method of operation, you know, just use everything you can and the rest sell it to the public, you know, convince them they need it for some reason. It's in pretty good shape. We have just many, if I move it in the light, I don't know where you can see it, but we have many hairline cracks throughout it. And then up front here where the actual connection to our receiver, whatever you want to call it, is, we have pretty significant crack around that rivet. So, and also the indentations, the holes for the D-ring, as I'm going to call it, for the sling, the webbing that does not go through. I just had a thought. It reminded me of, this is off of a pop gun, pop rivet gun, that kind of thing. I don't know if I will use this or make my own, but this is nice spring steel. So we had that kind of thing going on. Wouldn't be quite original, and I don't have any material for the sling either. I don't know exactly what would have been on here, and if anyone out there watching this has or has seen an original Wyandotte pop gun just like this and knows what that material is, let a guy know. Otherwise, I am going to fix these hairline cracks with super glue, and this is Star Bond. This is brown, a medium brown. Basically just super glue, and then I also got their activator, accelerator, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to take a quick look at how this actually very simple mechanism works. I didn't understand it to begin with, but it's really very simple. When I think pop gun, I think actual cork shooting out, you know, stuck in the end of the barrel, and you get a pop that way. This is quite different. This is a mechanical repeater. It uses the same cork over and over, so these would probably, you know, likely be 80, 90-year-old corks. What we have is a barrel within a barrel. So the outside double barrel is actually a rolled piece of flat metal, like we've talked about already. That would be very difficult to have a sealed chamber. And so they pressed in actual pieces of pipe and then locked them in with these tabs here. So then to create pressure, you've got your leather seal within that pipe in here. You pull it back, it has spring pressure, pull the trigger, it shoots forward. So that's where your air pressure comes from. Your corks are stuck in the end of that pipe inside and contained by this rod. So you load it, this pulls it into the barrel, you release the trigger, it shoots out this far. That's where, as all the farther it can go, you get your pop sound, you reload it. Pop, pop, pop. Very simple, very interesting, very cool. So if any of you have ever wondered why a guy has a carpeted workbench, this is it. Makes a great final assembly place to work, you know, without scratching the paint. Now we're going to try to fumble our way through getting this back together. Everything just kind of fell apart, as you saw a few minutes ago. I think my rods go in. No, I think I already did it backwards. I think I need to get this in there. Something like that. Well, I wanted to give you a close-up shot of what the trigger mechanism looks like. Both of these springs, now, like I said just a minute ago, it all fell apart when I took it apart, right? So I couldn't even get good video of how it goes together, you know, when I review the footage and so forth. Both of these springs are actually identical, other than the one on this side is a little shorter, but they're both bent exactly the same way pretty much, so it makes no sense to me. You would have them bent opposite directions. So since they're not, one is trying to uncurl and one is trying to curl farther, basically, and that's just not computing. If I do know on video that this was hooked over here and this is hooked over here. I thought maybe this would reach, the end of the spring would reach over to here and grab that. That's not working. They're not that long. So I've got to play around with it for a while. I'll let you know and try to give you a shot if there's any major changes, or I'll just show you what it looks like in the end, because right now I'm just a little confused. Trying to get this so you can see. Here's the solution, I believe, to the puzzle. Is I was trying to orient the springs this whole time to avoid the slots in this slide here, but it seems to me that I have the ends of the springs where they belong, actually going through the slots. The slide can return the whole way, and I'm sure it can cock the whole way, and you have clearance. And this spring, that would be the right hand barrel, looking at it upside down, is in between the trigger and the center bracket. The left hand one, however, is on the outside of the trigger. That way both springs can face the same direction. Both hooks are the same direction. That's making the most sense to me right now, and I think it's going to work. Alright, now for the nerve-wracking part of this project. I bought rivets from Hanson Rivet and Supply. They're out of California. I bought a half a pound of 5/32 by 1.5, and it's a good thing too, because I have gone through probably 10 of them already just practicing and failing miserably. The problem is that these are so long and so narrow, the shank of them, that they just want to bend in the center, as you can see. If we were riveting two solid pieces together, it'd be a completely different story, but we're just bridging gaps between, wide gaps between two pieces of thin sheet metal. So you get crazy with this thing, the whole thing just wants to bend. I bought a 5/32 rivet set, hammer or chisel or whatever you want to call it, for the air chisel. That's just too much power. It just gets carried away too quickly. So unfortunately I can't use that. I was just hoping to form a really nice round head with it. This is a practice I did with the torch and just a ball peen, and I think that's just my best solution. That turned out well. So without further ado, we're going to do this. I don't know what they did originally at the factory. I suspect they probably riveted everything together and then painted it. I didn't do that, you know. So I suspect, I expect to have to refinish the paint around each rivet. And that's okay. They must have had a pretty good tooling, and maybe they got them red hot too. I don't know, but that open gap is the problem, you know. So we'll give her a shot. Now, first thing I'm going to do is trim this rivet where I need it, and we don't want much. I'm just going to mark it there with the pliers. You don't want much, that is for sure. Okay, I'm going to clean the end up and then we'll try it. Alright, this could be a bit of a dance, and I may not even get it right the first time. We'll just have to start over. Obviously I have my torch going. I have a rivet setting tool that I made, hollowed out for the head in the vise here. Needle nose pliers. We're going to drop it in, flip it over, and hopefully peen it. Whoa. Probably want to grab the right rivet and don't put that on the cardboard. Get in there. Alright, so here's the first rivet, the head of it, and the tail of it. Not too bad. They could stand a little cleaning up, but I don't know how I would do that without screwing up more paint. But it stayed straight. You just take, if you have to do something like this, just take your time, very light blows, and just try not to bend it. So you get carried away, things start to bend. Alright, I'm going to continue. Alright, this fourth and final one's going to be the most challenging because we got a hinge point here, and I can't remember to do this first. Can't forget, maybe. So we'll get that in there. Our mechanism. And snap that in. I was able to really tighten up the stock rivets because it, once again, it's solid all the way through. They're solid material, so I don't need to worry about the rivet bending. Alright, so I'm going to drop that in there. This is going to be a challenge to get it to go quickly. I think I have a little too much rivet there. Man, that about gets it hot enough to set it. Just sanding it. And see, the thing is, that's a hinge point, so it's got to stay loose. Guess I could try it and cut it off if I don't like it, but yeah, let's try it. What have we got to lose, right? Already cooled off, I'm sure. This isn't working. Well, what in the world? Come on now. Easiest thing in the world to get lined up when it's cold, but as soon as you make it hot, nothing works. think if I'm real careful, we can do this. Alright, we have very few parts left, and what we have left are old parts that aren't going back in. I've got the, I ended up respraying the entire black part of the gun. I just decided that would look the best. So it's over there in the vise drying, and we'll grab it in a second. I don't have many corks, but I do have 2 of what I need. Surprisingly, I think I just need to cut them down a little bit, but they seem to be the right size. I think they neck down a little quicker than the originals, but I really doubt that's going to be a problem. Alright, we'll see if we can figure out these cork mechanisms, and then we're done. Just going to drop them in. Alright, we're all back together. I'm going to see if I can show you what's going on. Of course, we have the ends of our springs against those tabs again, and those rods go back to the trigger mechanism. The spring, well, our little charging rods here are hooked in the spring, so the spring pulls those backwards, right? At the same time, on the end of those rods within the spring are the washers and the leather seal. So that is, when you're loading it, you are pulling that leather seal and the washers back to the end of the inside barrel, and at the same time these little charging rods are pushing your corks into the end of those little barrels on the inside. So now we are loaded. Basically, when you pull the trigger, everything shoots forward. I guess that's obvious. That's kind of a gun thing to do. And there we go, guys. The restoration of the all-metal products Wyandotte number 35 double barrel shotgun pop gun, made out of the cast-off iron from the auto industry. We've refinished the stock, fixed the cracks, hairline cracks. I made a D-ring, refinished all the metal inside and out. All the bare steel parts are clear coated. New corks, new seals. I think you were just with me, right? You know all this. Re-riveted it together, got rid of the old lead and wire sight, and everything is working. Now, I need a little help from you guys. If any of you had one of these as a kid, or maybe you have one kicking around in the attic or the basement, maybe you even have one in your current toy collection, you know, and that's what brought you here. If you know beyond a shadow of a doubt what this sling was made of, I'm guessing it was inexpensive material back then, let a guy know. Email him directly, please. I would like to know what that was made of so I can get it right. Otherwise, if you have a comment or a question or anything, put her down below, and we'll do our best to get back to you. I don't know 100% if this thing is, either I had too high of expectations or something just isn't quite right. To me, most of what you're hearing is just the metallic trigger mechanism, not so much of a pop. I know it's working because I even took out the charging rods here and used a dowel rod and shoved the corks down the end of the chambers, and I could shoot the corks out of the barrel. So it is building pressure and they are popping out. You're just not getting that classic pop gun pop, right? So maybe it was a mistake to copy the exact shape of the old corks. Maybe they have collapsed and shrunk over the years, dried out, and they really needed to be bigger. That's a possibility, and that'd be easy to change, but I would have to get different corks. If you have any other ideas, let a guy know. But to me, it should pop better than that. So let me know on that. And like I said, we did a Daisy Model 25 restoration a little while ago, and you can certainly go back and watch that video. So other than that, I really appreciate you guys coming around. God bless you. See you on the next one. Maybe.